I have returned! And unsurprisingly, there were no masks in Himalayas. Why would there be masks in Himalayas? People of that region are either Buddhists or Hindus. They aren't exactly known for their masks. They are known, however, for their archery, monks, and corpse desecration. And this cupola is a good example of this. A cup made out of a human skull to appease whatever deity was pissed at them on that particular day. Fuck knows why they decided to put me in a wine cup of all places, but oh well. At least people can now put bread into me so I can throw it in random equipment. And we start our monthly tour with a new season of KonoSuba, because it apparently ended right when we left, and I think the most fanatical cultists have now switched to Attack on Titan Season 2 or whatever the fuck. In case if you haven't watched my review of the previous season, then a quick recap. KonoSuba is an adaptation of a light novel written by a girl that features an entire gang of women suffering under dysfunctional habits and bad luck, which makes me wonder why chauvinists haven't picked it up as an example of female inferiority yet. I personally found it to be one of the most boring shows of that season, but not that it mattered much, because people gobbled it up just like I predicted, and now we have the sequel that was long awaited by everyone, especially since the fandom majority of this fucking thing watch anime purely to get rid of their suicidal thoughts. KonoSuba2 starts off where the previous season ended. After killing a bullshit robot, Kazuma Sato is judged in a bullshit trial over some bullshit, and bullshit ensues. And that's literally all the plot. In fact, it's so literally the plot that you don't even have to watch the show itself. If you watched the opening sequence, you've literally experienced the entirety of what the second season has to offer, even the character interactions. But let no one say that I wasn't fair to this show, so let us dive in. The first thing that you will probably notice, compared to the previous season, is that the graphical quality decreased significantly, with characters' faces looking more fat than they used to, as well as having more cartoony expressions and movements. And while some people found this to be a flaw, I personally preferred this style over the style of the first season, mainly because the exaggerated features go in tone with their actions and overall personalities. The music, for the most part, is copy-pasted from the first season and is so forgettable that I'm not even sure that there was any to begin with. But you don't watch KonoSuba for stunning vistas or extravagant special effects. You watch KonoSuba for the funny interactions between a gang of dysfunctional losers as they bumble their way through a bullshit fantasy world, or in other words, comedy. And this is the part where you can see that this show is literally for people like this. Plebeians who can't recognize a good joke from a toilet one to save their fucking lives. Let me dissect to you the entirety of KonoSuba's comedy. In every episode, you have these recurring jokes. Kazuma Sato is being a pervert or exaggeratingly tries to prove a point, swinging his body like he's a Power Ranger on LSD. Darkness is being a masochist. Aqua goes accompanied with that annoying French accordion music in the background, and the rest of the cast is either derping around or are blatantly foreshadowing that they will be a boss encounter somewhere down the line. Every 5 episodes, our group fights the aforementioned boss that is always some sort of extravagant demon lord. Depending on his design, he will either survive their encounter or will be dead and no one will ever remember him. Hell, they even reused twice the same gag with running animals. Oh, and of course, a dick joke, so that when I will say that Tom and Jerry's humor was more sophisticated, people can say, well, this is an adult humor, your feeble mind wouldn't understand that. But even though the show makes Mr. Bean look like Life of Brian, the show's main strength lies not in its humor, but in its main heroes. Though in the first season most of them could easily be described as various levels of chuny, the second season is where the characters literally start to brim with personality and life. Kazuma turned from a shitty Sekai protagonist parody into not only a relatively competent and likable protagonist, but also into a person that, albeit begrudgingly, is respected and genuinely loved by his female companions, even if they will probably never admit it to themselves, let alone to him. Aqua, while still a bitch, shows that she's not that malignant and lazy, but rather just has a childish view on things and just wants to be liked by all, even though most of group's troubles happen either directly because of her or her actions. But this strength is also the show's main weakness that many people will probably won't notice right off the bat. The more the show goes on, the less funny and memorable it becomes. The main shtick of KonoSuba is that these characters are incompetent, and even in the second season this is more or less not a thing anymore. Kazuma is perfectly capable capable of herding his harem into a coherent unit that can easily go toe-to-toe with even the strongest bosses. And without the comedy aspect, this is simply trapped in another world fantasy anime, but without any epic stuff that makes these shows so pleasant to watch. And believe me, it won't be long till the viewer will be tired from the recurring jokes and just dumps the show entirely. Overall, this show is not as bad as the first season, yes, but at the same time overly mediocre and kinda losing its touch. The only redeeming thing about it is that the other comedy shows of this season are apparently even worse. I sincerely hope that there will be no continuation of this show, at the very least not in this year, because mark my words, the longer it will drag, the worse it will get. It's kinda like space tourism, only more probable.